My daughter had been afraid of the dark before, but this was different because this time she wasn't crying or screaming. She was whispering. And whispering is always worse. It started 3 nights after her 7th birthday, when she began insisting that there was a man under her bed. Not a monster or a ghost, just a regular man. And she said it with such specific certainty that I found myself checking anyways, kneeling down with an exaggerated sigh, lifting the bed skirt, and shining my phone flashlight into the shallow space beneath, where I saw nothing but storage bins and dust bunnies, and the pink glow of her nightlight bleeding across the carpet. I told her, gently but firmly, that there was no one there, that sometimes our brains make shapes out of shadows, and she nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on the edge of the mattress, as if she were waiting for it to move. The next night, she didn't call for me until almost midnight, and when I opened her bedroom door, she was sitting upright, blankets clutched to her chest, staring at the foot of the bed, and she said, "He comes out a little when you're asleep," which made something cold slip down my spine, but I laughed it off, because that's what parents do when they're scared. We pretend we aren't. I checked again, slower this time, pushing the bins aside with my foot, sweeping the light from the corner to corner, seeing only wall and carpet and shadow. I even lay down flat to prove a point, pressing my cheek to the floor and looking from her perspective, telling her, "See? Nothing." And she nodded again. But when I stood up, I noticed her eyes weren't on me. They were focused just behind my shoulder. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there, and I told myself I was feeding into it, making it worse, so I tucked her in and left the door cracked open. On the 4th night, I woke to the sound of her bedroom door creaking wider. A slow, careful sound, and I assumed she'd gotten up to come into my room, but she didn't appear. After a few minutes, I went to check on her, finding her bed empty. The blankets tossed aside, the window still locked, the closet door shut, and for one insane second I wondered if someone had taken her, if I'd somehow slept through the unthinkable, until I heard her voice soft and shaky from my own bedroom behind me saying, "Dad?" I turned to see her standing in the hallway rubbing her eyes, saying she had a bad dream and wanted to sleep with me. Relief flooded me so hard my knees went weak. I carried her back to my room, telling her everything was fine, everything was safe, that no one was under the bed anywhere. And she fell asleep quickly beside me, while I lay awake listening to the house settle. Sometime later, maybe an hour or so, I heard it. A soft, dragging sound from down the hallway. Fabric against carpet. Slow and deliberate. I told myself it was the air kicking on, except the air doesn't pause halfway like it's adjusting its grip. I slid out of bed carefully so I wouldn't wake her, and I stepped into the hallway, which felt longer than usual. Darker than usual, too. And as I approached her bedroom, I saw the door was now fully open. The darkness inside thicker than it should have been. I reached for the light switch with a hand that didn't feel like mine. When the overhead light snapped on, the room looked normal at first glance. Bed, dresser, toys, window. But the storage bins I'd pushed neatly against the wall were now pulled slightly outwards. Just enough to create a space between them and the wall. I felt something inside my chest tighten. I stepped closer. Every instinct screaming at me not to kneel down again, not to look. But I did. Because parents look. Even when they don't want to. So I lowered myself slowly, pressing one hand to the floor for balance, leaning forward until I could see beneath the bed. And there, in the narrow strip of darkness between the bins and the wall, was a face. Pale and stretched into a silent grin. Eyes wide and unblinking. Pressed so close to the floor that his cheek was flattened against the carpet, as if he'd been laying there for days waiting for me to look. I couldn't scream, at first because my body refused to understand what it was seeing, and in that frozen second, the face moved, just slightly, lips parting to reveal teeth too large, too many, and a whisper slipped out, dry, a little playful. "She told you." And that broke whatever spell had me because I scrambled backwards, slipping on the hardwood as hands shot out from under the bed, fingers long and gray with dirt, clawing at the air where my ankle had been. I stumbled into the hallway and slammed the bedroom door shut, shoving my weight against it as something inside hit it once, hard enough to rattle the frame. Then again, softer, as if testing. The handle turning slowly as if whoever was on the other side had all the patience in the world. I screamed for my daughter, for her to wake up, to run, and from my bedroom came a small, confused voice that made my blood turn to ice. "Dad?" And when I turned, heart hammering, I saw her standing in the doorway behind me, rubbing her eyes exactly the way she had earlier, wearing the same pajamas, saying, "Why are you yelling?" And I realized with horror so complete it felt like drowning, that I had tucked something into my bed that wasn't my child at all.